Hello, welcome to the Axe DevTools for Mobile demo. Axe DevTools for Mobile brings accessibility testing directly into your mobile development workflow, so you can validate your apps on iOS and Android with ease. For the sake of simplicity, I'll record this workflow using Android Studio only, but the process will be similar for iOS. Specific implementation details are covered extensively in the documentation. The first step is to open your app's build.gradle file. And if we want to run automation fully offline without any network calls to the Axe DevTools mobile service, use the following implementation in your build.gradle file. So I'm going to go down to about 158. I believe that's where I have these calls. You're going to see the DQ Axe DevTools Android library. And on 159, we have the Android test implementation. And on 160, we have the debug implementation. So you're going to want to copy both of these, and they can be found in the documentation. Next, we're going to add scans to our test. So I've opened this instrumentation registry example test within this repository, and I'm going to show you an example instrumentation test. So the SDK's API will run a scan and then save the scan results locally. How do we know that? First, we have this init class over here, which sets axe.setOffline license key, and it's going to take your license key for the offline feature. Next, we're going to look at the @test method. You see a function test using registry, the value scan result handler, which is set to axe.scan, and then the scan result handler is saving the result to local storage, as you see over here. Now, if you wanted, you could even iterate through results inside the test if you want to assert accessibility conditions. But in this case, we're not going to look at that. And then once your SDK is added to your mobile project, you can start running these automated tests right away. Next, we're going to configure the build.gradle file to pool the requests. So to automatically pull scan results out of the emulator, we'll add a short script in the build.gradle file. So if we go to line 65, you'll see that it's going to start these definitions. And you can find these definitions on the documentation, and you could just copy and paste them in here. The script starting at 65 will copy the reports generated from saving results locally on your emulator or device, and then move them into your build folders directory. So I've opened the terminal, and now we're going to run a test to define where the results are going to save. We're going to test the sample Android app. So Axe DevTools for Mobile analyzes the UI and flags accessibility issues like missing labels, insufficient color contrast, and so forth. Once you run these tests, the results are going to be saved as JSON. From there, we could use the Reporter CLI to generate a local HTML accessibility report. And we're going to assume if you've gotten to this point that you've downloaded the Reporter CLI, which is beyond the scope of this demo. If not, then you could find it in detail in the documentation. Now, let's run the script within the directory of where the CLI was downloaded. In this case, it was downloaded to my downloads folder. So I'm going to cd into that directory. Now that I've cd'd into the downloads directory, I'm going to paste this script. So this script can be found in the documentation, and it takes the /reporter CLI Mac OS, because I'm using a Mac. Now it's going to go to the system location of my application, and then it's going to go to the results directory, which is the download. Then I'm going to specify the format as HTML. I'm going to press enter. And look, Axe DevTools HTML report created in the downloads folder. Now, if I go to where the file is saved, I can see the HTML report, which I brought up on screen. If we look at this report, we can see the results from our most recent scan. For this demo, it was a simple scan with one issue that came up in terms of touch target size. So let's analyze it. We could see that the impact is moderate to our users, and there's an issue description which states that in interactive elements, visual and tappable areas should have a height and width of at least 44 pixels. So we can highlight this element, and it'll show us where on the application the infringement has occurred. And we can see that it's the touch target of this arrow tab, which is less than 44 pixels. We can see that the analyzed values has the height and the width at both 24 pixels and not the recommended 44. Not only do we know that we have one issue, but we have some that needs review. And if you want to go through all of these issues, you can, and you could even filter them by frequency and severity on your application. We know that over here, this is a color contrast issue, which is a serious issue. And we could highlight the element in question, which is this new collection, which is over a picture. And so we have to make sure that this new collection is sufficient contrast over the entire picture, which is typically difficult to do. If we wanted, we could clear all and then only bring up the critical stuff. So then we could apply this filter and then only critical shows up. Or if we want a couple, we could do that as well. Notice not only that, we also have a pass ratio and then an overall accessibility score of the application, depending on how many rules or how many issues came up. So now that you've seen the HTML reports, these reports could be shared across your QA teams, your dev teams, or your greater accessibility teams. With Axe DevTools for mobile, accessibility testing becomes a natural part of your mobile development process. Thanks for watching.